This website is the Digital Public Library of America. Several of the, first of all, let me back up. How many people are not members? Okay, I've got, pardon me? Okay, you are a member?
It's a sales
Okay.
pitch is what it is.
If you would somebody pass these around, and if you're a member, I'm gonna have a drawing here in a minute. If you aren't a member, you still have time to join. But I'm gonna have a little drawing here in a minute. If you would, pens and paper, we'll collect those back here in a few minutes. We do depend on the support of our members to provide all these artifacts that you see sitting around here. Digital Public Library of America. A lot of the stuff I posted here in the last couple of weeks came from Tennessee State Library and Archives. They are a member of this organization as well. I've said this before, and I don't know if everybody knows it or not. If you Google Dyersburg, this is the only one you'll find. Makes it pretty easy when you're researching and trying to find stuff about Dyersburg. You go to Milan, you go to Memphis, you go anywhere else, there's multiple. Jackson, just think how many Jacksons there are. But you start looking for Dyersburg, this is it. So it makes it pretty simple and interesting. We'll type this in here and see what we come up with. Is that big enough that you can see it? How about that? Notice that this is from Tennessee State Library and Archives, this picture. All of these. Let's look at this one, for example. Everybody recognize that? Main Street. Pretty easy to just start, okay? It doesn't take a genius to find this website. It doesn't take a genius to operate it. Just, you get in here and you start looking. One of the, there's not just pictures, Bisbee's comedians. Anybody here remember Bisbee's when they came around in the 60s? Used to have tent shows. You're the only ones going to admit you're old enough to remember that. Okay. BP.LA. Okay, digital. What did I say that, Ben? Digital Public Library of America. Okay, that's one. The other website I spend a lot of time on, Hathi Trust. Now I have no idea what Hathi is or where it came from. It looks like it's off the side a little bit. That's an H over here if you can't see it. This one actually allows you to log in. I'm going to do that in a minute, but start with Dyersburg. This page has 1 through 100 of 47,837 results, and those are just the ones that have the full view. Obviously, I haven't looked at all this. You can come down to, just pick something. I spent a lot of time looking at this one. Has everybody seen this annual report from 1898, 1899 for the Dyersburg Public Schools? I envision this as being something like today's annuals, where their kids are going around and getting advertising from various businesses to support the printing and making this. 1899, Curry and Latta, furniture, wallpaper, window shades, screen doors, undertaking department complete. It was pretty common back then. Furniture companies made caskets. I mean, Kind of a piece of furniture, right? Got a little larger where you can see it.
Do we think that's the same family as the Curry family?
Yes.
Cool.
Cut. I'm sorry? Cut price racket store. Who knows what a racket store is?
What you beat your clothes with.
Racket store, kind of like a dollar store. A lot of cheaper merchandise, a little bit of everything. So, shoes, dry goods, clothing, gents furnishings.
New and used?
I don't know. But W.C. Wilkinson had a racket store in Dyersburg and Jackson. Now, to tie all this together, Donkey Brothers had a city bakery and confectionery, fresh bread, fruits, ice cream, oysters. They had 3 stores, one in Dyersburg, one in Union City, one in Fulton. I'm going to duplicate this tab, just not lose it. I'm going to come back to something I was telling you. You see up here at login, okay? If you will log in to this account, unless you are a member of one of these universities or large public libraries, you'll have to log in as a guest, which is still pretty easy to do. Log in with your Google account. And then it will let you save these rather than having trying to find them again. So I'm going to go to my collection. See up here in the top corner? I have 55 items saved under a collection called Dyersburg. Saved the last one today. And one of the things I remember about, I've seen that name Donkey before. And it was in I don't know if you're paying attention to these things are scrolling by. Easton Morris's Tennessee Gazetteer from 1834. It's pretty interesting to look back and see what was here then. There is a, hope I haven't passed it. Let's see. I think I did. Here. Here we go. History of Tennessee and Tennesseans, leaders and representative men in commerce. This would be a good way to show how this site works. Over here on the left, got a function here that says search this text. Everybody see that over there? Right here. You can look for any word or phrase you want to put in. For example, I've looked for Dyersburg quite a bit. But I'm going to put in D-A-H-N-K-E. Because I remember reading about this guy. Fred at Union City Ice and Coal Company. His brother Henry, but you can read about this family, what they did, where they grew up, how they got to the area. This book was, remember, 1898-99. I call this Chasing Rabbits. I don't know if anybody has ever just got started looking to see where it took you. I'm going to jump over here to the Library of Congress. By the way, anybody who will email me, I'll send you a list of all these websites if you like, so you don't have to keep up with it. Library of Congress has, obviously, quite a bit of stuff online. Let's look for Dyersburg. One of the things I really like about the Library of Congress's site is they have Sanborn fire maps. Is everybody familiar with Sanborn? Do you know what it is? Maybe? Sanborn fire maps, back before we had the internet, before you had cameras that you could have the agent go out and take pictures and send to the underwriters, they provided a source for insurance companies to underwrite a risk. If they're gonna sell insurance to Donkey Cafe, how do they go about deciding the risk? Well, Sanborn sends guys around back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they tell them a lot of information about the town. And it just so happens that book from the school system, 1898 to 1899, here's a map from 1900. Let's gotta take a look and see how it matches up. It's got 5 pages to it. And page 1 on the left here. In 1900, for a short period of time, it was Sanborn Parish, but for the rest of the time, before and after, it was just Sanborn Map Company. You notice they talk about population 3,200. They want to know how you're going to fight fires if you have them, right? No steam engines, no hand engine. Had 2 independent hose carts. Water facilities see no prevailing winds from the southwest. Again, this is from December 1900. Water facilities. Direct pressure system from the Forked Deer River. So the water they had coming into town came out of the Forked Deer River, it went out of wells. They had hydrants, they had a ladder truck, they had a 12-man, two-wheel hand carts, hose reels, some decent hose and some medium hose. This overview map kind of told you where everything was laid out, gave you a listing of page numbers. Is that clear enough that you can see it? I can't tell whether.
What do the colors mean, do you know?
Those are just separating pages right now.
Okay.
There are some different colors I'm going to show you in a second. But you can see the courthouse here. You see the little dots where fire hydrants are. That plus. Right here. That's the fire department. If you get down here on the key, it gives you a lot of information about the various buildings. A red building is brick, yellow is frame. Tells you different colors of the construction. How the buildings are separated, openings in the windows, etc. So on page 1, in an insert, Dyersburg Male and Female College, 1900. Remember, this was the first schoolhouse, brick schoolhouse. It was facing south. So you can see the compass rose here pointing north.
Yeah, that's the campus we're in right now.
Right.
But what he was just showing you were the first 2 buildings that were Dyersburg High School. There was a third before they built this one, because at one time, the football field for this school, before this building was built, was right down College Street here, on top of the hill. And it was only 90 yards long. It's a whole other story.
Does everybody, who is not on Facebook? Anybody? Okay. most of you have Facebook, and do you see this page? Have you seen this, our Dyer County Historical Society Facebook page? Okay, if you have, great. If you haven't, take a look at it and like it so you'll see it as we post stuff. One of the things you'll see is we post a lot of photos, and right here, instead of going through all the different posts, if you'll click right there, you'll see pictures. All the different pictures that get posted. The reason I'm showing you that, we have the first schoolhouse here. I don't know if you can see, over to the side, you see there's a building back behind here. That's not really part of the school building, that's a separate, they call it a recitation room. But this was the first school. There's a second one's gonna be built, like Danny said, in the front of this one. And another one behind it later when that other building comes down. So if you look at the map, you can see the tower there, okay? We've got, that's where it was located. Sit right up here on the left. Can you see it through the trees up here? Okay. It's really plain on my computers. I wish it was that plain up here. Okay. So let's go to the next section here. I'm going to kind of get back to what we were talking about. On this page, the compass rose is pointing north to the left. And that drives me crazy, so I want to flip it over where north is up. First Baptist Church, look where it's sitting, Masonic and Church on the southwest corner. Does that make sense to everybody? Church Street, Masonic. Where ATA accountants are, catty corner from the current First Baptist Church. Okay. And you can see by using all these different sources, you can tie them all in together.
So these insurance people who are doing this map also does an outline of the building.
Correct. So if you're looking at, well, let's go downtown here. Again, the compass is pointing left for north, so this little, up here in the top right-hand corner, I can spin that around, turn it north. We can zoom in. Remember where I showed you the plus was? Firehouse is actually behind the Masonic Hall. They got 2 hose reels and a ladder truck parked back there.
Now that big white box right there that says 46 on its side, that was a common area back in the day, and that's the site of today's First Citizens National Bank.
Right here.
Huh?
The whole building?
No.
It's not current, it's not the current building.
It's the current First Citizens Bank.
Right here is where the current First Citizens Bank will be built.
But Cordell Hall is
No.
security bank.
Where First Citizens sits right now.
A different skyscraper. We got 2.
Cordell Hall will be back here on this, where this house sits now. Okay?
I'm curious, the bank, that's East Court. What was that building that's, the pink building out there, just right there across from First Citizens?
Across from First Citizens.
Right there, yeah.
Here
No,
or here?
next corner, yeah, right there.
Says it's dry goods and clothing,
And this was what year?
1900.
When I first came up here, I worked for a guy, and it was owned by
Well, see, Richard Baker ended up owning that.
Yeah, his dad.
It was also, at one time, it was home to Reed's Drug Store, but it also was home to the Palace Theater.
Yeah,
So it was a theater at one time.
and, you know, the deco, a lot of it was plaster, but it was like designs of cherries, and just, I mean, this is real decorative thing around, I guess for the state, it's still there.
Yeah, you know, even the old Francis building downtown, I haven't been up there, but I was talking to the owner, the current owner, and he tells me the balcony's still in that one too, above the drop ceiling.
I redone that building for Richard and his dad,
Oh, you did?
and that's, I asked him, I said, well, what's in here? And they said, well, I told him the driveway.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I said, well, all this stuff that's, you know, this all this graphic stuff, it's like,
Yeah.
I said, we don't know what it was, so. I remember who I talked to, it was somebody, state was it,
Probably.
but somebody came down there and I was interested.
That may have been Earl Willoughby, who wrote for the state gazette.
They came in, took pictures of it, I was afraid I was gonna tear it down, I said, I'm not gonna tear it down, do what I can do. Pretty fascinating that it was there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A lot of history here. On the north side of the square, you've got that dry goods clothing store, you've got a printing shop, barber shop, drug stores. On the second floor, on the, am I right, does everybody know that as Sawyer Corner from years ago?
I don't.
I got that from David Luckett.
Oh, really?
Told me that was known as Sawyer Corner here, okay? But,
That's the pocket park today.
correct,
That's where the Sawyer Opera House was on the second floor.
right. So, if you're over here shopping on this side of the square, right in the center, SAL Saloon. Got a place to stop and get a drink. TPA Hotel started out as Tucker House. Became Fork and Deer Hotel, what else? Virginia,
Virginia and Atwood.
Atwood, went by several names. Over here on the east side of the square, you've got the bank, was Citizens Bank, dry goods, hardware, carriages, grocery store, billiards, bowling alley. In case you get thirsty, there's a saloon. And here's another saloon. And apparently saloons were big business back then because over on the west side of the square, you've got another saloon. Photo office on the second floor. Remember that, we're gonna talk about that in a second. But there, you can go all the way around and see what was here. Back a few years prior to that, the post office was right here. Now it's moved over here to there. You've got a, it says PO there, an express office.
That'd be Yates General Appliance, wouldn't it?
Yes. Now, you see the courthouse is shaped differently too. I looked up the National Historic Register application for the courthouse. Apparently, the one we have now, the version is the 7th courthouse to be built. We had in Warren's house over in Stokes, we had Elias DeMint's house we used. And then we had a log cabin at some point, apparently between the ones that burned and rebuilt. This is number 7. We get over on the south side. Again, we're going to have to flip it because north is to the left. Racket store. Wilkerson and Palmer and Johnson were stable and carriages. And right in the middle here, the Georgia Opera House.
This is the south side of the square?
south side of the square.
It's in there about days on the square, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
That's about,
Probably Days is, yes, that Days would be probably right here, the third one, isn't it? I believe.
and maybe the Georgia Opera House is where Diane Moore once was, and now it's
Yeah.
trustee's office and.
I believe you're right, Days on the Square is probably right exactly where the Opera House was.
Years ago, it used to be the old Gravers building.
Okay,
It's got a downstairs to it, I believe, and
yeah, when it was Cozy Kitchen, they used to have meetings downstairs and stuff.
Where's the Ben Franklin building in relation to that?
next
Right
door to it.
In view.
Over here,
Up there,
Yeah.
where he did that building too.
but one of those would have been Donkey Cafe, possibly confectionery right here. Jewelry and books. Just happen to have a saloon on the south side of the square. There's 5 saloons around on four sides of the square there.
At the bottom of that, 1, 2, 3, the fourth one from the left,
Mhm.
are those steps maybe?
Yes.
Like a spiral staircase looking thing?
Looks like steps going up, yes,
Off the alley?
off the alley.
Huh.
And you notice that's not uncommon. Look here, over on this side where the 23 is, stairs going up here.
Bill, what about that, those dotted lines that?
I'm sorry. Oh,
In the Opera House, is that like upper story seating?
That's the balcony.
Balcony?
You got this would be the line for the balcony. And then this is the front of the stage.
This kind of sparks a memory of mine, I'm not sure where this came from, so I'm getting this off the top of my head. That the schools would have like a beauty pageant type deal for the kids over there in the Opera House. Cause they didn't have a stage and all that kind
Well,
of stuff.
that's a real good point, because on this, it points out that the graduation took place in Georgia Opera House.
Okay, that's it, maybe. You what?
I think they had him
Maybe that's where it is. He was talking about May Alexander's book, which was called The Hardest Part of the World.
I'm not gonna stop and try to go through a whole lot of this, because every bit of this, you can find it on your computer. Very simple. And again, if you will send me an email, I'll send you a link to every bit of this. I'm looking where it tells that this was in the Georgia Opera House, but this was graduation night, and it gives the whole presentation. Something I thought was kind of interesting, city kids, you go to school for free. If you're not from the city, high school, $3 a month. Grammar school, $2 a month. Primary school, $1 a month. So you had to pay your tuition. I don't think anybody had to take out a loan back then for that. H.Y. Darnell, fine photographs. Penner's old stand. Anybody heard of Dr. Penner? Dr. Penner was a doctor, and his hobby was photography. He started a photography studio. And H.Y. Darnell took that over after, I don't know where he retired, or I think he died. But that's the wrong side. I was on the right one to begin with. Hang on. On the west side of the square, I got it flipped again. Here we go. Now, fourth building up, photography studio. It's only one that's showing, so that's probably where H.Y. Darnell and Dr. Penner had their photography studio. Like you said, Danny, look here, you got stairs going up the back,
Off the alley.
off the alley to come in up top.
Is that little tan thing, on the right of those buildings, is that like a covered walkway maybe?
Yes. It's a wooden frame
Yeah.
with, for an awning.
Yeah.
From the pictures, we can see. With the Library of Congress, you've got, let me get back out of that. From 1886 to 1914, which gives a pretty good broad view of what has changed over the years. Pretty good steps. 1886 was actually just one page. You notice it's got Market Street, Main, Court, let me make it a little bigger, and Mill. But if you get outside of that downtown area, it says West. Masonic Street's North Street.
Is that west, is that Clark Street? Clark Avenue?
I think so.
It's not, is it? That'd be what we'd call church today, wouldn't it?
Yes. So you've got Church Street,
Yeah.
correct?
What I think's interesting about that map right there, he said it's 1886. And when all these schools were built up here on this hill, somebody, I'm not sure who did, when they started becoming old and dilapidated and started tearing them down, somebody had enough sense to take the cornerstone of the very first school that was built on this site, because it says Dyersburg Male and Female College, established 1886. Well, normally if you tear an old building down, you just bulldoze the whole thing or haul it off or burn it or something. But they took that cornerstone and they saved it, and it's sitting out there today beside the sidewalks. If you walk out of here and go on the sidewalk, walking like you're going toward Curry's, and just look down beside that utility pole, you'll see it. It's still there. It's cracked across there. But it's so big, I hadn't got enough wherewithal to get it inside this building. So I just tell people, there's an artifact sitting out there that kind of does this, because you'll notice, he said it's one map, because in my mind, when they built the schools over here, it was just barely on the outside of town. Because back then, the southern boundary of the town was the river. The northern boundary of the town was McGoy, which comes up in the back. The western boundary of the town was Clark, which is the one that goes into the farmer's market today, kind of more like an alley than anything else. And then the eastern boundary was about where Sampson is here. And that was the town.
So, was it really a college, or was that back where the high
That's what they
school-
called them, colleges. Because back in those days, we have a map that we pass around a lot that shows the schools in 35, 36. And there were 10 high schools back then. But before then, they would call them colleges. Most of them out in the county would be like 2-year schools, not 4. And so I kind of relate that this way. As this male and female college, because see, one time they had male and female going to school separate. Then they came together, that's why they call it the male and female college. Well, then the street it's on is named College. You can go to any town in West Tennessee. You can go to Halls, you can go to Ripley, you can go to Mumford, you can go to Dyers, you can go to Trenton, and you'll find a college street. Because they weren't colleges, they were high schools. We call them high schools. But it's interesting how your terminology changes. And most people, when you tell them that in 1936, there were 81 schools in this county, and 10 of them were high schools, they'll go, huh? But there were one-room schoolhouses. So, and then the whole education system has shifted because of highways and buses and people not having to, you know, we drive everywhere we go. But back in those days, you lived there, you worshiped there, you went to the store there, you went to school there. I mean, that, you know, all those one-room schoolhouses were a staple of the whole community.
And even though you've got a college street, this is how you would get to school.
Yeah, McGoy, that's McGoy.
And it was facing south. It wasn't facing College Street. That's the Barry Brewer building right there on the right.
That's what White and Associates, okay, today?
Yeah, the old hospital. Okay?
Now that picket fence on the other side is where Methodist Church is today. And now Earl Willoughby has told me that that's where Tom Neal lived. And Tom Neal was once a mayor of Dyersburg and the first editor of the newspaper, which wasn't called the State Gazette, it was called the Neal's Gazette.
They could actually walk to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing interesting about this also, obviously you don't want to take the time to read all this, but it goes through the fact that they're rethinking how they do the education, how they teach. Prior to this, everybody's kind of in one room, all the grades. Here they start splitting them up. They've actually got, and this shows you George Opera House, May 18th, 1899 is when the presentation was made. I'm not sure I can find it very quickly, but there was a, in the general report, hall teaching. System of hall teaching in vogue for so many years was discarded at the beginning of the scholastic year. When you start looking at teachers, you got a first grade teacher and a third grade teacher, and the two of them split the second grade. And they're talking about here, they're gonna remedy that and hire a second grade teacher, so everybody is learning in the grade by themselves. So it's pretty interesting. You can see the changes in the way the education system's working here.
He was scrolling through that just then. I saw somebody wrote an essay called Then and Now. I'm not sure if you can see it again,
Yeah.
but I just saw one. And it made me think of this book that Bart Williams gave me several years ago. It's called America Then and Now. And it has a picture inside a juke joint in Minglewood, Tennessee. And when you talk about split classes and things, when I started teaching in 1974 at Dyer County Central, I taught a split class of 5th and 6th graders. And the superintendent said, when you get your enrollment up so high, we'll hire you another teacher. You know what that magic number was back then? I had to get 40 in that room. And I had 39 for about 3 months. You know, when 40 walked in, I went to the office and called the superintendent. Said, it's time to get another teacher.
But I would recommend looking this little pamphlet up and just searching through it, because it is really interesting, some of the changes it talks about. If we go back to the 1886 map where we were a while ago, and I know I'm jumping around a lot, but that's kind of the whole point of what I'm doing here. 1,500 population, no steam engine, no hand carts, no independent hose carts, water facilities, not good. It means you're gonna be paying a high dollar for your insurance. If you notice, Sugg House was actually one of the first hotels in Dyersburg. I think probably the first as far as a decent hotel. Tucker House here. You see the little circle in the street? It's a well with a hand fire pump. So you would drop the hose off in it, pump water for a fire. First Opera House, here, this was the Sawyer Opera House. I'm not gonna go back to it, but on the Tennessee State Library and Archives site, there's a picture of Main Street, and they're standing kind of at Court. Yes, sir?
Back to where you said about pumping the,
Yeah.
all right, that was just for fire. How did the buildings have water? Did each building have to have a well?
Well, I'm gonna assume not a lot of them had water. You've got a cistern. A little circle right there is a cistern that they had in between the buildings. They didn't have plumbing, running water. That's what you're asking. Not 1886. It was just, I'm gonna say you had to step out and dip some water out of the well.
Started doing the sewer and water.
That would be a presentation all of its own.
Now, we were talking about that this morning or yesterday, I forget which. And I can't tell this very well, so he may want to pick this up. We have water pipes in this town that
Had.
not anymore, that were basically made out of hollow logs.
The last one that they tore up, I asked Mike McCulloch about this today, just to ask about that. The last one they dug up that they know was there was actually like boards strapped together, like a square tube that they had water running through. Now we still have some lead pipe. They crimped them off and they're not using them. They're under mandate to get them out. But there's still some lead pipe in the ground. But the,
That's just about ignorant,
right.
Well, now, one thing I think is missing, you talk about plumbing. Did this insurance people, did they show where the outhouses were?
No.
I mean, you had,
They had chamber pots back then,
they had what?
chamber pots.
I don't know what they had. I mean, you know, you think, with all those people living around town, they gotta go to the bathroom somewhere. I don't know how that would work.
Didn't care if they-
This is what Danny was talking about with the log.
Really?
That was a water pipe.
Yeah.
And how many, have you ever heard of a hydrant called a fire plug? Like talk about having a fire plug? That name comes from when they would actually drill into the side of that pipe and then they'd plug it. Now that plug right there, it doesn't go in the end, okay? It goes in that little hole right there. So if you had a fire, they would actually dig down, drill a hole in that pipe, tap it into to get the water and pump it to get water on the fire. They called it putting the wet stuff on the red stuff.
Would that
Okay.
increase the pressure of the main line then?
I'm sorry?
If they plug the side trails, that would increase the pressure of the main line for the water.
If they plug it, I'm not sure.
But in these days, they wouldn't have a water tank elevated, would they?
Right. No, this isn't where they had, they're bringing water up from the river in a lot of places. But this is some of the early pipe that they're putting in the ground to pump water.
How did they pump the water?
They had steam engine pumps to bring it up. When they first started actually delivering water to the city and having running water, they were pumping water out of the Forked Deer River, filtering it in a sediment tank and then filter it, and then pumping it up to a standpipe, basically where on Gordon Street where that big green tank is now. And that would gravity feed back down to the city. But that, if you look at those Sanborn maps over the years, you'll see a lot of that information in there. And kind
My
of,
mother told me that they didn't build that just overnight, that green tank.
Right.
She said people used to swim in it.
so there's a tool that they would use to bore out that log to do that. Now, one of the things that this is a example of what I just told you. When they would first start doing this, they would dig down past street level, down to the pipe, bore a hole in that pipe and tap it. And when they're through, they put that plug back in. Or they might actually have a plug drilled already, a hole, and plug it, and then cover it back up. Which sounds kind of stupid if you think about it, but that was a big improvement right there. They put a pipe down to where you could reach and get to the plug. That canvas bladder around there, when water comes up into it, it'd hold it open. Then you could either drop a hose down in it and pump it, or grab it with buckets, like a bucket brigade, and then reach back in there and put your plug back in.
How many houses didn't burn down while they were doing that?
That's a good question.
Well, you know, and every building was beside each other, which there were no firewalls, so if one started, the whole town could go up.
Here's an early
Doing
fire hydrant.
genealogy, I came across an article on one of my great ancestors, where there was a fire here in Dyersburg, his last name is C. And I don't know what kind of business he was in, but it burnt like 3 businesses downtown, you know, one right after the other.
That happened multiple times in Dyersburg, yeah. There's a diagram of a more modern take on a fire hydrant. But this is what I was talking about. They would actually put a stake in the ground, said, dig here, there's a fire plug here. You know, it just makes more sense to me to go ahead and have a hole there and like with a canvas bag, but and again, more modern fire hydrant. So anyway, that's another tangent.
Be some tough digging in the winter time, but.
Wouldn't it though?
So that didn't show any of the rivets or anything like that,
No. We're at 6 o'clock, and I told you we'd have a little drawing. Everybody got your name on a piece of paper? Anybody need to join before you have the drawing? Everybody? We'll always say membership. I got some passing on down. We'll take your word for it, get you money in a minute. You have money.
What you said about that being Tom Mills' house,
So what?
where you said that you thought that would be Tom Mills' house where the picket fence
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
Aunt Maddie always told me she lived where the,
Before you get
church-
too busy reaching there, well, we got another coming?
where the church was,
Mhm.
is where she lived, and
Anybody
Tom
else?
Mills lived by her, so that has to be it,
Yeah,
because it was right there.
that's what Earl told me. He also told me that a president came and visited, I don't know which one, and was gonna stay in Neil's house, but something happened, he didn't make the trip or something.
Okay, I told Robert, I read this online, that a president had a wood mill, a sawmill.
Reach in here and draw one, anybody other than Robert Moore.
Is it Tricia?
Robert Moore.
Fred Moore.
Fred Moore, yeah.
Well, anyways, it said the president had a sawmill at Lane, at the river.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But it wasn't but for a short time, and he went into the war. And I can't remember who it was, but I did see that on there, so it might have been that one.
See, they'd use a water wheel to turn the saws. That makes sense.
Thank you.